Hitting record. Okay, we should be good now. So I want to welcome you all. As I said, this is the first time I've held a class using the Zoom meetings, so hopefully it works out good. My name is Brent Mowdy. I'm the Global Director of Design Technology at IBI Group. Welcome to Algonquin College. Welcome to the BIM management course. My focus is project definition and deliverables. Just as a point of just order here, I'm going to make sure everybody is muted, and then just try to make sure you do that. And then, whoa. So I'm just going to keep muting everybody, and then unmute yourselves when you want to speak, so that there's no background noise or anything like that. Where to begin? We'll do some logistics first about the course, talk a bit about myself, do the first lecture, rock on. So just first thing with the course, it'll be this live portion will always be delivered online via the Zoom classroom. So it looks like we've got 3/4 of the class or 2/3 of the class so far. When it records, the recording will appear here. So it's actually a lot more efficient than previous years. So I run it, I record it, the recording's there, accessible to all of you. So that works out very, very good. Hopefully you're all familiar with Brightspace. That'll be my main communication mechanism to all of you. I also have the email address that you can contact me. I try to be as responsive as possible. So it's all good. Just a bit about myself before we get on the course. So I am, as I said, Global Director of Design Technology at IBI Group. That's a global firm, and I'll be talking quite a bit about my experiences that I carry both with IBI Group as well as my previous employment at CH2M Hill. I have Globe, London Olympics, Masdar City, master planning in Abu Dhabi, some water treatment plants in Australia, wastewater plant in Singapore, as well as some airport work, Panama Canal widening. So I've been all over. I've seen different modes of delivery. What I love about this course is I have a lot of students from different backgrounds, different professional backgrounds, geographic backgrounds coming all together here, all with the same mission, which is just phenomenal. So I hope you all enjoy this as we go through. We have 15 weeks together, or 14 weeks together. Myself, I'm an architect background, so I've been practicing architecture for 20 years, but my focus has always been technological. So it's always more than just the architecture, more than just the building. How do I bring all disciplines together? Some of you will come in with civil backgrounds, and I'll try to stress it today, and hopefully you'll see it evident throughout the course of the course, that BIM is not for architects, BIM is not for buildings. And we'll talk about that as we go through. The mission of this particular course is how do you define what you have to do for a project, and how do you understand what has to be delivered? And there's a lot to that. So when I pull up the outline, getting our heads around how to actually plan for a project and plan for a deliverable is one of the biggest challenges of this BIM process, and getting over all of the myths around this. So very quickly, if I press on the content button here in Brightspace, you will see, see, everything works nice and fast. Okay, so I might turn off my video if it keeps going that slowly. I've got access to my course information, and the course information includes both the CSI as well as the breakdown, background reading, etc. Course outline is in its own separate tab up here, and the course outline mimics what I'm going to be showing from the weekly breakdown. But if I go through this very quickly, the description, as I said, trying to define what we're doing and how you're doing it from a BIM perspective. You can read the VLOs and the CLIs. It's all pretty consistent. What I wanted to get down to is the evaluation piece, as well as what we're doing. So, sorry, so that's the CLI. What I want to get to is this part here. Sorry about that. The CSI piece. So this breaks down the course for us. So the outline is the standardized outline. The CSI shows what we're going to actually be doing. And I'm going to turn off my video. I'm just going to stop it for now because I think it's slowing down my connection here. So some evaluation criteria, and I want to stress a couple things here. The hybrid learning, 15% of the grade. And for me, that's the easy 15. And I'm going to describe that in a moment. But this course is described as a hybrid course. So it's supposed to be 2 hours in class, 2 hours online self-directed, or well, self-paced directed by the course. So that means each week, almost each week, I'm going to have a little task. And the way I'm evaluating is I'm asking you all to go to the discussion forum and do something based on the task. So we'll get to that in a moment. Quizzes and tests will all be online. I've got 4 quizzes scattered throughout the course of the term, and then a final exam that you do at your own pace through the system. 2 assignments. I used to have 4 assignments in this class, and we decided it was too much. So 2 assignments, well, I think 1 in October, 1 in November, and then a final presentation where I force you all into groups, and you take stuff that you've learned from those 2 assignments, come together as a group. Some of you, you'll have all my comments. So some of you may have some correct things, some things to improve on. You all come together as a group, you make a global solution, and you present it to me as if I was a project manager. That'll be the last week. That's my favorite part of this course because it really simulates what it's like in real life. You get a job, you're a BIM coordinator, it's great. A project manager says, here, I don't know, I just won this project, I don't know what to do. And they hand you a bunch of things, and you scratch your head and say, okay, here's what I think we should do. And then you get some teammates in your firm, you all get together, and you present it back to the project manager. So that's exactly what we're going to do here. So then if you look at the breakdown here, it shows when we're doing what. So you see I have a very early quiz, and they're quick quizzes. Like you'll see, I don't want you to get freaked out about these quizzes. I'll go through the presentation content. You'll see it. Great. Quizzes will kind of really follow on what I talk about. You see where the assignments are introduced. So when it says 50% here, that's 50% of the assignment grade, which is 25% of the course. Because there's 4 quizzes, each quiz is 25% of the quizzes, which is 20% total, okay? So each quiz is essentially 5% of your final grade. You know, and as we go through these, I'm not going to dwell on all of these. You can see how we're kind of growing into the overall intent here. So let me go back to the content here. So those documents are all there for you to have a look at. That's fine. You know, when you do have a moment, I know I'm one of 5 professors that are throwing all of this at you right now. For me, the weekly materials kind of gives you the pathway of where we're going, but I don't want you all to dwell. So the point is that each week, prior to the class, a week will open up. So you can see each and every one of these. If you try to select them, you won't be able to because they don't open until later on. But right now, open for everybody is definitely week number 1. And obviously that's what we'll go through today. But we're going to start by defining like just what is BIM. When I say BIM, when you say BIM, when everybody says BIM, what are we all actually talking about? That's the premise I'm going to lay now. To define a definition and a deliverable, the most critical thing is, well, what do we have to deliver? How do you know what a client wants? And then how do we plan for it? Talk about BIM execution plans. In order to plan for it, we have to talk about software and how to collaborate. So week 4 and week 5. BIM uses, what are you going to do with this model when you have it? So what are all the things we can do? How do we understand the deliverable requirement? So we'll get into that. How do we define an overall solution? So once you know what you're BIMing and why you're BIMing it, how do you pull that all together into a technical solution? Week 9 and 10, we get into a bit of the depths of legal. So I don't want to bore you with all of that, but I definitely want you to be cognizant of the fact that we are part of a greater ecosystem. And in this network of architecture, engineering, and construction, there's legal requirements and contract requirements that you just need to be aware of. By no means will you be a legal expert upon completion of this course. Talk about some BIM case studies, workflows being, if I say we're going to do clash detection, great. How do you make that happen on a project? And it's more than just pressing buttons in software. We'll do a look back. I usually have a couple other things this week 13, and we'll have any dialogue around the final presentation. And then the best week of the term is they'll all be presented. So that's kind of what we're going to go through. If I come here into week 1, sorry about that. What is going on here? Yeah. So if you look at the online learning, I'm just going to click that for a moment here. So already, and I think there's about 7 of you that have done this already. What I've asked for the online portion, and I hope that these online things are done prior to the class. I give a window of time for them to be completed. I'm asking you to introduce yourself and identify some myths. And that's it. And for me, there's no right and no wrong. And I want to just stress that, okay? But what it looks like, and I'm just going to open this in another tab, hopefully. There we go. In the discussion forum, I have, and obviously you're seeing it from my perspective where I'm seeing everything, but as a learner, you'll just see what's open. You can see here, oh, and we got more, awesome. So we have 11 and 9 on the first ones. I have these available because it's week 1. I know people are getting orientated. I have week 1, week 2, and week 3 all open until September 25th. By September 23rd. By September 23rd, if you have not completed them, they will disappear and you won't be able to complete them. Sorry for that in the background. If you, there we go. So if you go into any one of these, all it is a discussion forum. Write something. You get marked by whether it's there or not, period. This is 15% of your grade. It's probably the easiest 15%. And it's all designed just to get you to think about the topic. Don't have to research, don't have to do anything. So the BIM myth one, great examples in there. And you can see what everybody's writing. I asked you to go in there and give me some myths that you've heard of that you're aware of. We're going to talk about those things in the course of today and figure it out. Student intros, that's just I just want to learn some stuff about all of you and we could all learn a little bit. Just a little blurb, write something. And I just beg you all, do it. Get in there, put something in there. When I grade it, it'll be yes, done, perfect, you get the mark. Easiest part of the hybrid, easiest part of the course is the hybrid learning, and they're meant to just tease the brain, okay? That's the whole purpose of those. So then going on, each week, when you look at the weekly materials, I apologize that the refresh is slowed here. It's probably consequence of the Zoom meeting. There we go, now it's all open. So each one will have an online discussion, some objectives, do your discussion. I will come in and do the presentations, have some dialogue, and then that's the course. The video will be, that's the set with the week. The video will be there, you'll be able to look back, etc. And then upon completion of today's course, week 2 will open up and you can get a preview of what we might be talking about next week. So with that, any questions? I know that was a lot just thrown at you. I'm going to jump into a couple of presentations, but are there any questions about the format of the course or anything that I've just said? Everybody's speechless, so that's okay. Awesome. If anything comes up, no worries, just let me know. what I'm going to do now is I'll jump into the presentation tent, and I'll start with the week 1 PowerPoint, and then I'll jump over to talk a bit about some myths. So, if anything comes up while I'm talking, please feel free to interrupt. I'm all good with that. I'm just trying to see if I can hide these things from my view here. There we go. Perfect. Can you just bear with me a second? I've got things from the Zoom meeting scattered all over my page. So, okay, awesome. Conceptual overview, okay? So some of what I talk about here today will show up in like more in-depth in latter weeks. I'm just gonna give you a wash. The outcome of this is I'd like you all to know what's in my brain. A little scary, but I think just wanna lay the premise of what we're talking about. Now, BIM intro, the last 2 years when I put this slide up, one of the comments were, hey, in some of the other classes, we saw some different definitions. That's okay. What you'll notice is a lot of these definitions, like if you just Google BIM definition, you'll see a lot of different things. They're all essentially saying the same thing. What I want to show with this is you can have BIM, the process or the verb, and BIM, the noun or the files or the data. 2 different things. So a process involving the generation and management of digital representations of physical and functional characteristics of places. What a mouthful. Basically, what I like to say, look around wherever you're sitting right now, all the things you see can be BIMmed, and they all have information. That's it. The question is, where is the information? Just as a side note, I teach at George Brown College as well in Toronto, and I just did the first class there this morning. So giving very similar content. And in the class there, seeing everybody's faces, I was able to say, point at something you see. So I know we're all in different spots right now, but there must be a light in your room. So look at that light. And if I said to you right now, run out to Home Depot or a hardware store, quickly buy a light bulb that you can replace the bulb. Right away, do you know what you would go buy? And the answer is probably no, unless you have an obvious light. So most likely you would unhook part of the fixture, maybe take off the bulb, bring the bulb with you, or look at the type, etc. Imagine the world where you could point your phone at that bulb and it brings up a digital twin, so a virtual representation of your physical space, BIM, shows you the light, shows you what was designed, what was constructed, so what was installed, maybe how it was connected, so the shop drawing, whether it's still under warranty, the type of bulb that was placed, and the type of bulb to replace it. And then maybe there's a button that says, hey, I want to buy it. Click it, it gets drone delivered through a digital economy, and it appears while we're still talking. But then imagine if while you're pointing your phone at that light, it says to you, oh, and by the way, the lifespan of that light bulb is supposed to be 5,000 hours. It's only been on for 2,000. And by the way, did you know the last 5 times the bulb was replaced, those previous bulbs also did not live to 1,000 hours? Are you sure you want to do this? Because the performance of the bulb is not optimal. And then you say, well, I don't know. What should I do? And then imagine an artificial intelligence engine kicks in and says, you could do A, B, or C. Would you like to do that? Or based on performance data, there's been electrical spikes in the distribution network that your bulb is connected to, and we recommend doing A, B, C. And imagine all that data at your fingertips, all because you pointed your phone at the bulb and said, I got to replace that. That's powerful. BIM is a data source, hence the second definition. Files, whatever format, connected, decision-making about the place, software kind of used by individuals, businesses, agencies during planning, designing, construction, operations, maintenance, etc. That entire lifespan. Remember that. Collaboration and planning are very critical as well. You got to know what you're doing and why, or else we will fail. There's no way you can achieve what I just described, pointing at the light bulb, if we don't know what we're doing. This image here, this is my son. And the reason I show this is in the medical industry, BIM or the equivalent of BIM has been used for a long time. So my son had to have head surgery. So on the left there, the before and after, these are digital twins that were created of his skull using image scanning as well as CT scanning. And as a client, we were sat down and they explicitly mapped out what they were going to do. They gave us before and after, and me, because I'm a BIM guy, I said, hey, can I have that model so I can do this during classes? But this is BIM. This is BIM in the medical industry. This here is BIM in the, what is the museum industry? I don't even know. Archaeological industry, I guess. This is me at the British Museum. I'm standing in front of the Gabellian Man, so there's an artifact in front of me and a fully engageable 3D model on a tablet in front of me as well. I can slice it, press elements, move. As I'm interacting with the display, the artifact is being augmented with, interacted with, changed, etc. How phenomenal is that? And this is everybody. And you all have phones, I'm assuming. And everybody's smartphone has some sort of intelligent something that's built into it. It's ingrained in the fabric of the society within which we live. We need to make it more ingrained in our AEC industry. You'll hear me say that often, AEC, Architecture, Engineering, Construction. You might hear me say AECO, Architecture, Engineering, Construction, Operations or Owners. My BIM formula, something plus data equals BIM, period. That's all BIM is, if you want to make it as rudimentary as can be. When I work through the challenges of, hey, I want to do CAD, I used to draw 2D lines, that's the biggest difference right there, is getting beyond that mentality of, I'm not going to draw a line and offset it 300 meters and give it a layer called a wall. I'm going to draw a wall, but I'm going to pick wall, decide on my thickness, a little bit of more information about materiality and particulars, and generate that wall. I will get my lines. And if people could just, if the industry could get over that, how phenomenal. The amount of data, it's, I'm not going to say irrelevant, but it's fluid. It might be wall when I'm in schematic design or when I'm starting, but it might be a wall with a fire rating and a rebar condition and a finish and who knows what else by the time I hit construction. And then it might have restain dates. It might have finish warranty information, other items like that, as if I'm using that same component during operations. BIM is also not building. So I remember when I did this first class last year, one of the students emailed me after and said, I don't understand how this applies to me. I'm from a civil background. So I want to stress that. After 2 weeks, he emailed me and said, yeah, I get it. But I want to stress that here today, we're going to be talking about BIM from the perspectives of both vertical and linear infrastructure. And this example here is a bridge that we designed. Every element is connected to a grander ecosystem. So the curb, the guardrail on the bridge, in the road network, in the entire network of the country. If you're sitting in a room right now, you probably have a piece of furniture. So you look at that furniture and say, what's its geospatial ecosystem? The furniture is in the room, that's on the floor, that's in the building, that's probably on the campus, that's in a district of the city, that's in a city, country, continent, etc. And that macro to micro geospatial location is critical. And why is that critical? Because we want to track motion, track our assets. The iPhone tracks where I am every single day because it's on me. I have the watch too. It knows where I am. I accept it for me. We accept it now for our digital assets. When thinking of buildings, this is what we do. This is our design process. Electrical, mechanical, structural, architectural, whatever other disciplines, all working together in the same virtual environment. In one of your other courses, you'll be exposed to Revit, so you'll see that firsthand. Revit is an awesome build tool. It's also not the only one. Big myth buster right there. Once you have a model, we cut it up. Materials, Material lists, clash detection, and drawings. This is now a decades plus old process. This isn't new stuff, but this can be made to break. So what do I mean by that? I have a model and it'll tell me how many columns and beams I have. But what if some crazy modeler says, I need a column. I'm going to copy a beam, rotate it 90 degrees, and now it looks like a column. And imagine the failure. Imagine that. When I get quantity of column, that rotated beam doesn't show up. What if I'm doing a structural analysis? It's supposed to be a column, but it's going to be acting like a beam. Sheer and utter failure of a structural analysis. Clash detection, great example there. Duct is hitting a beam. It's not going to fix it for me. Something has to be done. A decision has to be made. And then my drawings are the byproduct of the model. On the civil side, I always ask, does anybody run? Does anybody walk around? Does anybody notice that when they have an intelligent smartphone, it tracks your movement and it tells you, hey, you know what? You've walked with an elevation increase of 10 meters. How does it do that? This concept of a plan and profile. So in the world of civil, I describe it saying, and we've done work on some major linear projects. You want to draw a cross section of a road. So picture any road in your vicinity. And I want a cross section every meter for a road that's 10 kilometers. It's a lot of cross sections. Why would I want to draw them? So plan and profile automates that for me. I just basically make my alignment, have some varying particulars for curb, subsurface, etc., and I say generate. If they come back and say, no, not every meter, I need it every 500 millimeters, whatever, click of the button, this stuff appears. Civil virtual 3D coordination for exterior civil spaces, like parts, for example, operational interferences. This is a site drainage, site utilities, etc. Buildings sit on something. I tell all those architects out there that your building doesn't fly. If your stuff doesn't connect, if all the data inside the Revit model doesn't connect to civil-based data in all those other applications, we're failing. City infrastructure, existing, new, underground, above ground. I had a civil colleague that used to say to me, if you see my mouse moving, Brent, you're an architect. That's your building. I'm civil. All of that is mine. And it's true. There's a whole host of civil-based assets that far outnumber buildings. We've got interchanges, roundabouts, rail networks, and finally, the digitization of the existing fabric. Point clouds have come a long way, and what we're able to do now with this stuff is phenomenal. But that's not all. Plant-focused BIM. It's, I want to say, the forgotten brother or sister of the BIM world. When I graduated university, I was sent straight into this. So I was an intern architect. I came in, they said, hey, Brent, can you make that 3D model talk to these PIDs? And hopefully you're going to ask me right now the same thing I asked them, what's a PID? I didn't know. A process instrumentation diagram. So basically this PID is an intelligent drawing that lists all of my pertinent assets for a heavy industrial sequence. I did a lot of work with water treatment plants. I'm going to use that as an example here. Imagine, so you guys are near the lake. So there's Lake Ontario, just south of Ottawa, a little bit more south than, it's just south of me. But imagine water coming off of the nearest freshwater lake, goes to some sort of treatment facility, gets filtered, a little more chemicals, a little more filtering, then it goes to a holding tank, then it goes to a water tower, and then it goes to wherever you live. That's a process diagram. Now, all of those pieces might have a whole host of sub-processes, and they might be located scattered across many, many facilities. So the work here, this is showing you, this is a gate valve. I look at this process diagram, I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There's 11 gate valves here. And here they are represented, 11 gate valves. The diagram says, my process has 11 valves. Your 3D model better have them too. And I'm going to check for them. So as I'm laying out a building, if there's supposed to be 11 valves, they better be there, or there's quality warnings that say there's things missing. In addition, all of this backbone data, all of this connectivity is tied to what's called SCADA. And SCADA, in simplest terms, it's the operation screen of a heavy industrial plant or a water plant. So somebody is on there pressing these buttons, these same buttons that open a valve, close a valve, turn on a pump, turn off a pump, and they're doing it from their screen. And their screens are fed by these same process diagrams. So direct connectivity from the model to the operations, right from the starting point of design. That's the power of the process world. This is a project I worked on in Denver, and just focusing on that one pump. That pump was, the gate pump was placed. We had a library, has a unique identifier, unique identification, ties it to that intelligent schematic, the specification, the owner's operations manual, as well as the SCADA screen, all of it coming together. And you can see here, that's the PID, and that's how it looked in their screen. All of this connectivity, all about data manipulation from start to end. That's what it's all about. That's BIM, that's my world, that's what I've done. To achieve this, can't be done in a vacuum. I need software. So, software is most often divided in 3 pieces: building, civil, plant. And this is very important. We're going to spend the whole class talking about it, but just get that nugget in your head. Buildings, civil, plant. And there's a reason for that. We'll talk about myths in a bit. And some of you identified in the discussion board. BIM is Revit. What a myth. Yes, what a myth. This course is called BIM Lifecycle Data Management, not Revit. BIM is not defined by the abilities and inabilities of that one software called Revit. Now, kudos to Autodesk as a software vendor. They have littered the internet profusely so that when you Google BIM, you are almost surely guaranteed to find something about Revit. Just like when you Google CAD, AutoCAD's going to show up. They put the word in there. It's too bad they didn't call it Revit BIM or BIM Revit. In the case of AutoCAD, the word CAD is in the software name. It's unavoidable. People find it. But in the world of BIM, I've got building-based BIM authoring tools, civil-based, and plant-based. Building are all governed by the IFC standard. Now, I think in your standards course, Megan's going to talk about that a lot, I hope. IFC, today at George Brown, I said, has anybody heard of IFC? They all put their hand up. And I said, not issued for construction. Industry foundation class. All those hands went back down. I like describing IFC as kind of like the PDF for BIM. So it's open format governed by ISO 16, I always forget it, by an ISO standard, governs the taxonomy of the data within a building model. What I mean by that, I place a wall in Revit, I export to IFC, import to EcoSim, it's a wall. Import to ArchiCAD, it's a wall. Fundamental data definitions. Now, because of that, if I do something complex and insane in Revit, the IFC file is going to want to dumb it down to a common data definition. So it does what it does. But the point is, if you walk around the industry and say the only way to model a building is to use an application called Revit, you are absolutely incorrect. Revit is an option to model a building. All those other ones apply. All of these software also have the ability to analyze. So there's structural energy, daylight analysis, people movement tools, etc., that either harness directly into the applications or use the ability to pull IFC out, knowing that they're going to get a common foundation upon which to apply an analysis. Similar concepts for plant, governed by ISO 15926. It's a standard, again, governing the data taxonomy. Pipes are pipes, valves are valves, etc. And why is that important? If I want to do, again, the connection to the PNIDs, very important, but I want to do a pipe stress analysis. And I run an application saying, if I have a plastic pipe, I'm going to run 100 PSI of pressurized something through it. It might be gas, and it might have a temperature of 30 degrees Celsius. I want something to tell me, first of all, whether it'll work or when it will fail. Can it sustain the temperature? Do I need to insulate it? Blah. All those questions. Building apps are not going to give me that. And look at the breadth of apps that are available. OpenPlant, AutoPlant, SmartPlant, CADWorks, Plant 3D, a little bit of Revit. And I say that with cringe because they're trying to introduce the P&ID tool starting in 2018 and PDMS. A lot of applications. So when we get later on down the road and we talk about collaboration, a lot of people can visualize, how do I collaborate when everybody's in Revit? But how do you collaborate when you have a little bit of Revit, a little bit of Ecosim, I don't know, a little bit of SmartPlant, and a civil tool? It's a very valid, important question, and it's always a question. Never once on any project have I had a project where it's only buildings or only plant. It just does not happen, period. Okay? So, with that said, civil. Not too many tools in the industry, if you notice. Bentley Open Roads, which is a consolidation of 3 applications now. Civil 3D, and then of course Esri ArcGIS, which is not really a BIM authoring tool, but there's a lot of data that links. And the reason that it's specific is because there's specific things with cut fill quantities, drainage and surface flow, terrain analysis, alignments, plan and profiles based on center line alignments, etc. So there's a lot to that. And when we talk about one of the BIM uses of machine control, they take those models and they auto direct machines to move dirt and do things. So very powerful stuff. The point is, you're going to have some collection of building, civil, and plant wrapped around your CAD platform, your model review tool, your document collaboration tool, and some reporting. Hardware is going to be hardware. And then the fun part of the BIM role is, where does all this stuff go? How does my owner want to receive it? And how else will it be delivered? The example there is a GIS online database for departments of transportation in the United States. So they may not be the client, but anything that's happening on the ground, they try to collect it and portray it. On the London Olympics, we had an online GIS database that they wanted us to have portrayed for our stakeholders. So I just see somebody raise their hand. So let me see how that. Oh, sorry, So and whoever did that, raise their hand again. It's not showing me. Or unmute yourself if you raised your hand and if you have a question.
Hello.
Hello.
Actually, we have a lot of softwares, right, sir, for BIM purposes. Yep. But my question here is that how could you incorporate all the data in all the softwares? And for example, if I'm doing a process with ArchiCAD and if I need to incorporate it in some other software, how that software is going to take that data?
Yeah, and we'll expand upon all of that through the course. Yeah, so, and I'm not going to get into the technical details of it in this course by any means, but in reality, so using ArchiCAD as an example, ArchiCAD plus the IFC file will give you that foundation to pull data to and from. Now, sorry, to move data from one platform to the other. But so a lot of the project examples that I'll show later on, if I had, let's say you were working in ArchiCAD, I was working in Revit. We'll have a moment where we'll need to do geometric coordination, but then there's also the moment where we need to deliver information. So I can go Revit, ArchiCAD to some type of cloud-hosted SQL database, for example, or cloud-hosted repository for consumption. So I'll show examples of how we feed multiple file formats for us into an asset management system, for example. And then we give that as a service to a client. Make sense?
Okay, yeah. Thank
you.
Cool.
Yeah. No problem. So I'm going to lower your hand and re-mute you, if that's cool. Okay, cool. I see all that. As I said, sorry, first time using Zoom, so a lot of the functionality is a little different for me. That's funny. Actually, your question is, it's funny. This was my next slide here. So I had made this slide actually a decade ago. And the vision was sometimes you cannot control. We could have a project that has all these platforms. And I have had that pleasure. Bentley, Intergraph, Revit, and Civil 3D. So yeah, Revit was for Arc, Struck. Bentley was for mechanical and electrical. AutoCAD Civil 3D was for civil. And Intergraph SmartPlant 3D was for the piping. And we did it. One of the hardest challenge was the geometric coordination during design, but conceptually, you can feed multiple tools, and as long as there's common data definitions, you'll be fine to an extent. This all comes back to planning, scoping, making sure things are correct on the onset, and the path forward is doable. Very quickly, BIM is a cookbook. I like to cook. I don't have time to cook, but consider BIM as a collection of various ingredients that we cook up together, okay? So imagine that. Softwares, versions, what we're doing, multiple BIM uses, etc. And the point is we want to find those recipes that are just phenomenal. That project I described where we had the 3 platforms, that's not a very phenomenal recipe. It's one that I have in my back pocket. Would I choose to do it by myself? Never. I would never want Bentley, Intergraph, Autodesk, and AutoCAD and Revit formats all live together at the same time. What a nightmare. But it's doable, right? Other ones are good, other ones. So you have these recipes, and then with these recipes, you come to the table and you say, okay, what are we doing? What are we BIMing? And why are we BIMing it? Project definition and deliverables. Step 1, definition. What are you doing? So every single project, and this is how I've sold BIM in multiple firms, whether it's the firms I work at or joint venture projects. You BIM everything, but these are the fundamental uses. So we're talking a lot about the BIM execution plan, the Bible, what we're doing throughout the course of a project. But every project, these are my uses. I'm going to BIM to do my drawings because it's going to make me so much more efficient that I'll be happy. I'm going to review and I'll visualize. Where we break when we get to the myths in a moment is if I say, uh-oh, I'm doing BIM, I now got to do this stuff too. Well, hold on a minute. If my project is paying me to do an architectural design, that's what I'm doing. But there's value to these. Now, the value is an interesting concept because the value sometimes is evident for the design team or sometimes for the construction team. And how do you mitigate that value in contractual arrangements that aren't amenable to that? And we'll talk about that later on in the course, but just remember there's design bid where I'm designing and then I give it away. It's bid on by the contractor and then it's built. Then there's design build or P3 projects in Canada, that's public-private partnerships, or in Ontario. That's where the contractor now is my client and the contractor is telling me to do all these things. But as an architect, I scratch my head saying, I don't know. And then there's all these other BIM uses. So next week, we're going to kind of go around this wheel of BIM and talk about a lot about these, how you plan for them, why you plan for them, how do they affect your deliverable, how do you look at these and say, oh my God, we're going to do some of these and what do they mean? And then we'll go forward from there. Also, if you want a good recipe for success, it's not just my BIM execution plan or my training. It's all of this stuff together. So no one of these are more important, but you've got to scope your work. So scope is my BIM execution plan. What are you BIMing? Why are you BIMing it? And you'll hear me say that a lot. What are you BIMing and why are you BIMing it? I'll go to the oldest of architects. I'll go to the most junior of engineers. Answer that question, because that question spawns all the necessary questions I need. What are you BIMing? Why are you BIMing it? Awareness. Make sure everybody on the team knows. We're starting a major, it's been announced. We've won the Hurontario Light Rail Transit, which is in the city of Mississauga here in Ontario. We're at that first question. Hey, client, what do you want us to deliver? Oh, there's multiple clients. Oh, there's multiple deliverable formats. Fascinating. How are we going to do it? So we're now proposing a solution. Actually, we're doing essentially now what your first two assignments are, trying to figure out how we're going to share amongst all the stakeholders and what that technical solution is to achieve our BIM goals and what the client wants. And then we'll train. We've got to actually use Bentley's current OpenRoads software on this project. Great, we're going to set it up. We'll train, all good. Point of accountability. I have a BIM lead assigned to this project. If I don't have a BIM lead, who's accountable? So that's this role. When you guys come out, apply to IBI group, I'll look for credentials like what you'll have with this certificate. And those are the types of people we look at. Resources. If I'm going to do this stuff on a project, I look around the globe of IBI. Do we have people? If we don't, do we have to hire people? People who can model, people who understand. Do we need external entities to work with? We're going to talk heavily about a common data environment, heavily, because that's how we share. If I have two people working on the same thing in a different location, I have disconnected data. I have no hope of one day you pointing your phone at a light bulb or at an asset and seeing all the data about it. We all have to be connected. And then for us, leadership from the corporate level to our geographies, internal, external, etc. Very important stuff. Multiple definitions of BIM, 2D, 3D, 4D, 5D. Don't quote me on this. 6D is actually wrong in this because it keeps changing. The point is you add another dimension, another layer of information in this never-ending chasm of more and more data. That's what it is. And I think the numbering of dimensions has got to go away because it just doesn't make any sense anymore because there's multiple dimensions. This slide's from Autodesk. I like it because it's representative of what we do with assets. A lot of focus is right over here at plan design. Great. We get these contract documents. Contractors' focus is here. The longest focus is right there from an owner and maintenance perspective. A lot of effort. And then we redo it and we go over and over and over again. The cycle never stops. It's an exciting world. Multiple benefits found throughout the life cycle. So we made this slide 15 years ago to go in front of the City of Toronto. They said, what's 3D and why? These are all the things. And this is by no means inclusive of everything. But as the model grows throughout the life cycle, from design through construction to operation, you have this ability to generate and harness the model for different purposes. Tender, if you're an international student, tender is the same as bidding. I know the term varies across. So in a typical design, bid, build project, we would design something, put it out for tender. In Canadian law, that means it's public. Anybody can bid on it, and there's legal rules around that. We'll talk a bit about that in week 9. Everybody has rights to all the information. If there's a model, the model goes out there, they bid on it, they figure out what they think the price is, and away they go. What can we do? This comes straight out of the Penn State Plan. You can see various BIM uses. So remember that wheel of BIM? Sorry, the wheel of BIM, you're able to, various types of analyses, and that doesn't even cover it all. Some BIM uses span all. So notice existing conditions modeling, very important use. So that's the digitization of our existing fabric today. But let's say we're in construction. It's then digitization of what did I just build? So I can then take that scan, compare it against the BIM, and see what's happening, leading me to the creation and validation of a record model. Phenomenal things. A lot of work with asset management, space management, and tracking that I'll talk about later on. IBI is jumping all into that. We're going to talk about level of development, LOD, and we're going to, I don't like it, but it's there. And the gist of it, there's a lot of confusion. Level of detail is the UK term. Level of development is a North American term. Level of information is also a UK term. It's all good. The point is this: the higher number, the more detail. And the detail could be geometric or information. And just look over here, as this is a good example of the wall. 300 is roughly what I like to do as a comfort in design. Then you can see a little more happening as I get up to the 400. Same with steel. 300, a structural engineer is very happy. Column, beam goes into column. 350, it starts talking about connection details. Those are usually done by a fabricator, not the responsibility of a designer. 400, how it was assembled. That's your contractor. Why do I dwell on this a bit? Because we'll talk a lot more later. BIM execution plan. There's an LOD matrix that I'm going to show you guys. And basically, it's saying this is to what level of development we will be modeling everything in the model. So walls might be 300. Chairs might be higher, might be lower, depending on the nature of the project. And the biggest trap we get into is when a client or a contractor says, give me a 400 model. And somebody says, okay, and guess what happens? Then they start looking, hey, where's my modeled steel connection details? Well, we would never do that. So there's a nice legal dialogue, hence the reason why the legal piece has to be included. It all comes back to concepts of growing your project over time. I'm not going to give you a high LOD component model when I'm in the beginning of my stages, okay? So we'll talk more on that. Definitely, there's a whole part later on, I think it's week 8, about when you deliver. But obviously, like as with anything, you go from conceptual design to final design, construction, operations. Obviously, things are very schematic at the beginning. They become more detailed, and then they become real. So don't do more than you need to, depending on where you are temporally within the life cycle of your project. NBS in the UK, I don't want to say a joke, but they put out their periodic table of BIM. Thought it was kind of cute because it covers a whole host of things. And you think about all the stuff we're learning in this course. Technology is one of many. You got a whole course on standards, processes, and workflows. People, I'm going to harp on people. Resources, you can't do this stuff without the right people. Enabling tools of software, collaboration. I'm going to drive you all nuts on collaboration. If we can't collaborate, we're not BIMing. The process is broken if we're not collaborating. So very interesting, and it's very UK specific, UK vernacular and semantics, but it's a pretty cool thing to have a look at. BIM execution plan is very critical. And again, we do have a whole week just on that. I expose you both to 2 templates. One of the hybrid is just saying to have a look at the 2 different. I used to actually have the first assignment making you give me a write-up on the differences between the 2. The feedback was, Brent, that was kind of boring. And I said, fair enough. You know, there wasn't too much there. But it's, you know, we'll talk about the differences and see the differences. You just need a plan. You have to know what you're doing and why. What are your goals? I'm going to create my drawings efficiently. Using what uses? Design authorship, maybe existing additions modeling. Great. Now, does your entire team know this and agree on it? Are your goals in alignment with scope, schedule, budget, quality, and risk? Those are my favorite 5 buzzwords. If you get in the industry, BIM doesn't work. Why? I don't know, something related to scope, schedule, budget, quality, or risk. Those are the crying words of project managers that resonate. Oh my God, you're going to burn the budget? That's not good. Doesn't matter if BIM's the reason or not. You've got the attention. So I do a lot of work trying to debunk all of the rubbish when I hear BIM doesn't work. BIM killed my budget. Why? Well, I just had to make drawings, but I was running clashes. I did a schedule simulation. I was toying with an asset management system, and I ran out of time. Right. That's not a BIM problem. That's a person problem, a management problem. So we'll talk a lot more about this triangle. But the gist of the triangle, if I take on more scope, imagine scope increases. If I don't accommodate schedule and resources, then the triangle breaks. If I try to do higher quality stuff, but I don't accommodate scope, schedule, budget, quality explodes and the triangle breaks.
Chad.
Hey, do I have a question? Somebody's unmuted. Do you have a question? Nope. Okay. Sorry. Just watch that mute button, guys. Okay. So this, we'll come back to this diagram often, but next week, actually, we're talking about owner's requirements, or EIR. So EIR is a British term, employer's information requirements. In Britain, the employer is the owner. So long story short, what does your owner want? If you don't know what the client wants, just stop. Don't do anything, because you must figure that out. Assess your capabilities. Great, now we know what the client wants. Are we able to do it? Then make your plans. And we'll talk about the appendices and all these terms and everything. I'm not going to get into all those today. A lot of the work that I've done in my career is trying to get the information into the digital economy. So BIM is nothing more than a real robust stream of information. And we get stuck in that authorship, BIM authoring. I'm in Revit. Revit can do A, B, and C. Or I don't know how to do what I need to do in Revit. And now I'm stuck. IFCs give me that generic BIM, open BIM. Once I'm in an open format, I can connect to asset management, data analytics, social interaction, social being you, the user. All of you are a data source, and an important data source, because everything we design is designed specifically to service the population. That's us. How can we design if we don't know anything about what you like, what you think, what you want, what you need, or how you may or may not interact with the collection of assets that are forming my building, my bus stop, my sewer drains, my water treatment plant, whatever it is. Very important. So that's the first slide I wanted to show today. I'm going to jump to the myths. Any specific questions, or I just have maybe 15 more slides here with BIM myths. And as if I don't take the full 2 hours, no worries, especially for day one, because there's a lot of stuff all at one time. Okay, BIM myths. With everything I just said, you're hopefully sitting there saying, that sounds wonderful, Brent. We should be doing that everywhere. I hope you're saying that, because we should be. There's no reason why everything isn't BIMmed. And everything that you're learning in the other parts of this, in your other 4 courses, you get into the industry, you're going to go in there and say, so what's the problem? This is what we should be doing. But there's all these myths out there. So I'm lucky. I work in IBI Group. We're a technology-driven design firm. That's what my CEO says. Great. He said to me, Brent, get out there. Tell them this isn't a question. This is what we do. No more unintelligent CAD. We will do BIM. I said, great. You got it. What I like is this last line, the statement, we at IBI Group design data. I said, my goodness, I work at the right spot. We don't design buildings. We don't design roads. We don't design bridges. We design information. IBI Group stands for Intelligence, Buildings, and Infrastructure. And I came here 5 years ago because when I was reading up on them, I said, intelligence. They have 20% of their revenue generated by a sector that focuses solely on data manipulation. And I said, I'm a BIM guy. I'm all about information, the I of BIM. Let's make this happen. So I get here, I did the interview, all was good. I get here. What's the first thing I hear? BIM is Revit. What? And I stand back, and some of you put that myth in the discussion board. Great. I struggle with this, and I'm now 20 years since graduating school. I don't know how many more times I can say BIM is not Revit, period. And this is what I hear. Did you install BIM? Do you know the UK mandated Revit? Like, what? No. I've heard people say to me, I know how to do BIM. Watch, start Revit. I said, what'd you do? I opened up Revit. I'm now doing BIM. And I'm just, oh my goodness. So this is what we face. RFP says to do BIM. How do we do that? This is for a road. Because automatically they're saying, RFP says BIM. I think BIM is Revit. I'm not going to Revit a road. Therefore can't do BIM. It's like, what? No, man. Revit is too hard, therefore BIM doesn't work. These are all the things I hear. And 20 years in, I say BIM is ingrained in the industry, but this is still what we hear. My father's an architect, 72 years old. He won't BIM. He just doesn't want to hear it. So that's what we're faced with. We're going to go into the industry. When I hire on BIM coordinators, either from this course or other colleges, they come in and they say, Brent, remember all the stuff you taught us? What's going on? I said, yeah, this is what's going on. Riddled with myths. IBI is full service. So we have structural, mechanical, electrical, civil engineers, piping engineers, etc. And what do I hear? Oh, Brent's the BIM guy. Brent's an architect. Everything he says doesn't apply to me. I'm an engineer. Big, big myth. It's for all disciplines throughout the life cycle, period. This is a project I worked on. Look at all that stuff in there. I don't see anything that you would term architecture. There must be a floor and wall in there, but all that stuff is BIMmed. That's just how it is. Got to get over that myth. BIM is different from SIM, BRIM, etc. BIM covers everything. This is what it is. Building information modeling. That's what BIM is. So the fact you will hear all of these terms, and PIM is one of my favorite. Piping information model, plant information model, project information model, process information model, whatever. It's all BIM. So when you hear me talking about BIM for the next 14 weeks, BIM, the act of building an information model, the verb, we're building information models, we're building relationships, we're building. It's not the build, all right? BIM just focuses on buildings. I was just saying that. BIM is equal to the act of creating. It's the process. All of this stuff is BIM. And I deliberately show, yep, it can be a building. This was one of my projects. It's in the middle of a golf course. Very proud of it. BIM is also all this other stuff. And there's those P&IDs again. Conduits, field routed conduits, heavy mechanical assemblies. Down at the bottom right here, this is a roadway project. 9 kilometers of modeled pipes, planters, root bulbs, telephone poles, electrical poles. How beautiful. All BIM. Good BIM too. CAD is equal to AutoCAD. Again, kudos to Autodesk, marketing engine, very smart. CAD had never equaled AutoCAD. CAD is actually a process. CAD and CAM and CAE, it's been there, my God, since I was a kid, right? And notice a bit of a similarity there. It's all about you conceive, you design, you develop, you create. Yep, that's pretty much BIM. Design, build, operate. Only it was, BIM's way better. We have a lot more technology, 3D, etc. But the concept of the CAD process has been there for decades. And getting to break that myth. I'm told, I'm not going to do BIM, I'm just going to do CAD. All right, so what you're telling me is you're going to do AutoCAD? What are you trying to say? Because then, the next myth, MicroStation is a BIM thing. Now, I'm not seeing your faces. In my class this morning, I said, who knows MicroStation? Nobody. And I can't stress the importance of knowing or being very aware of the Bentley applications. So MicroStation itself is a 2D CAD platform. So when I hear people say, I'm just going to do CAD, I know they mean AutoCAD, but I ask them, oh, which one? MicroStation? And I get this look of evil. Like, how dare you? But it's a valid question. And if you end up working here in Ontario, a lot of jurisdictions like the Toronto Transit Agency, Metrolinx, the government agency managing the GO Transit, as well as some major LRT projects, light rail transit, are all Bentley deliverables. So Bentley is quite large. And if you come globally, you're familiar, like Europe is an interesting mix between Graphisoft, Autodesk, and Bentley. Bentley is very powerful in Singapore, and Australia has a good cross. So it is everywhere. Bentley has no BIM applications. It said BIM, we must do Revit. That happened to us on a major project. And I got in there and said, no, project managers, it says BIM. It does not say Revit. Bentley has an equivalent. Bentley's Revit is EcoSim. Bentley's Civil 3D is OpenRoads. Bentley's Recap is Descartes. Bentley's Plant 3D is OpenPlan. They have something for every portion of the built form that you see around you. And some really good software too. So IBI Group, lucky me, I get to govern the implementation and use and purchasing of all of our Autodesk and Bentley applications. If you're wondering, and I remember last year during these classes, somebody asked me, so should we go and learn Bentley? I'd say no, don't hang up the phone and say, crap, I need to go learn some new software. But just be aware that there is other software to learn. So for us, with this Here Ontario project, we're going to train our staff on OpenRoads because that's what they have to use. And what I would recommend is think of BIM like when you would write your name. If I told you to write your name in pencil or pen, I'm sure you would do it. You would know that, oh, I can't erase the pen. What if I told you to write your name with watercolor paint? You could do it. A little more involved. I'm sure you could do it. What if I told you to write your name on your iPad using your finger, using a chop? I'm sure you could do that too. Everything has a different process. You might have to learn a little more. I'd probably struggle writing my name with watercolor because I don't like watercolor. I would do it with oil paint. Whatever. It's all doable. So don't walk away saying Brent said BIM is like writing your name, but you got to be multilingual from that perspective. BIM is too expensive. I hear that all the time. I say BIM costs absolutely nothing. And when I say that, again, I get the scowl and the dirty look, but it costs nothing. Because if you control scope, if I say to you, I'm going to do my drawings and I'm going to use Revit instead of AutoCAD, I'm going to be more efficient. And the way it can't be disputed with me is I'll ask you, do you want to draw doors once or 5 times? And anybody who says 5 times is doing things 5 times more than they need to. So you do it once. Yay, we're using Revit, we're using BIM, there you go. But how do you control it? So first off, and there's my doors, sorry, I forgot to come to her. Controlling scope, schedule, budget. I am more efficient with 3D. The big myth, well, 2D is better. No, it's not. Do what you want to do. That's your step in. We're coming in as trying to become experts and specialists with BIM, but the functional users and the aware staff, the bottom of that triangle, those are your architects and engineers. You win them by saying, use this technology because look at the efficiency you just gained. They give you 2 thumbs up and then you do more and more and more. Hence this myth. If we do BIM, our scope drastically increases. No, if you do BIM, you do BIM. If you choose to increase your scope, remember scope, schedule, budget. And this dialogue goes on all the time. So here I refer a bit to those contract modes. In these DB, so design, build, or public-private partnership, contractors are pushing designers to do more. And some designers are saying, okay, because it's BIM, okay. And guess what? You're doing more. You're not getting paid. So that's simple math. That's not good business. If you're doing it strategically, that's a different story. But if you're just saying, okay, so if the contractor said to me, Brent, you're the architect, I want you to coordinate the temporary work subtrade and the structural designer. I'd say, yep, I can definitely do this. Here would be the price. And have the dialogue. I wouldn't just say, okay. Right? Very important. We are doing more BIM tasks, and it's depleting our budget. Of course you are. Again, scope, schedule, budget. I'm going to keep harping on that. These are some of the tasks that occur. So 2D CAD file translation. Brent, can you convert your Revit into AutoCAD to turn over to the cable company? Yeah. How often? So we've had projects where the deliverable is MicroStation, but then they ask us to accommodate all these subtrades or agencies or others not planned for upfront. Now, when we talk about BIM, it enhances design, enhances enhances review, enhances quality. But all of these other items, like what we're having here, they don't just happen. Hold a formal review meeting to walk through the model using VR. Sure, I don't have to do that to achieve my architectural design, but that sounds great. Let's do that as a team. Do it for free. Why? No. So those are the dialogues that we have that break the facts, that break these myths, and hopefully help to create them into facts. We also talk quite a bit about level of development, and we'll get there. Plan what you're going to model. Brent, you guys are doing BIM. You think you can model all the rebar for us? I don't know. Just start with no. It's a simple answer. Just no, and see what happens. Because as a designer, I might have to detail this as a structural engineer, but I certainly won't have to model all of that. But is there value to that? Is there a reason? We actually modeled a nuclear waste storage plant. We modeled a portion of the rebar to prove, and I think I show it later on in the course, to prove that the aggregate of the concrete will fall through the robust rebar. There was a purpose there. But other times, this might be all I need, the simple beam. Maybe this one here to make it look a little better. That's about it, right? You got to know that. Think about what we're modeling and why, what you're BIMing and why. There's no support for BIM. So this in an IBI slide, and this is something that you describe for wherever you end up. There's support all over the place. We've got internal support. There's connections to external agencies, external support, some of your software vendors, resellers provide support, networks of support, etc. Just there's no support, doesn't fly in this industry anymore because this stuff is everywhere. There's support all over the place. One of my favorite ones. We can't do BIM because the client didn't ask us for it. So think about that. We can't do the process of BIM. So we can't apply the BIM process because the client didn't ask for it. When did the client ever direct what processes we use during design and construction? Or the client requires AutoCAD or MicroStation. So what? The client deliverable can be anything. Workflows are built to accommodate. Week 8, I think, we talked through a lot of these deliverables. They're all irrelevant. BIM to CAD workflows, very easy. I've been doing that for 20 years. It's all good. Client can ask for whatever they want. We'll model, we'll deliver. If I'm not modeling, I'm inefficient. How we work is never governed by the client. Never has been, and it certainly never will be. And this is very bold. And when we come out, part of the reason why I make you all present to me on week 14, because I want you to have the confidence to press forward and say, this is a solution. This is what we have to do. This is what the client needs. And this is all that the client is empowered to dictate, period. No client has ever said, oh man, I'm not going to pay you because you used Revit. That's not going to happen. And we all know that. BIM hinders conceptual design. I find this very comical as well. So when this is conceptual design, give me a sketch, hand it over to me, and then they would draw it on the table using pen and Mylar. We would draw it in AutoCAD or MicroStation in CAD, or I'll BIM it using a BIM authoring tool. Everybody gets it. Seems to work. Oh my God, now it doesn't work. Like, well, what doesn't work right now? Well, you know, Revit's hard and I want to use Rhino, and there's just a whole bunch of rubbish. And the funny part is, when I dug into this myth at IBI Group, it was, well, it's a Revit project, so I'm not allowed to use Rhino. I said, well, what does that mean? This is conceptual design, parametric design, algorithms, write them in Grasshopper, feed it to Revit, just do it. And then we go from Rhino to Revit. We go Dynamo straight to Revit. We do what we have to do, and we make it work. This is no different than handing me a napkin covered with a design. So it's a huge myth out there. Project BIM CAD lead role is the new role. Again, rubbish, 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 and just rubbish. 3 decades of having some type of technological leader role. When I worked in my dad's office, I made his layers on AutoCAD, and I helped him set up his AutoCAD template. And that was, my goodness, 30 years ago almost. Same concept. In the 2D world, everybody was comfortable with a CAD manager. Now there's this fear of a BIM role. You know why? Because technology is growing exponentially. So too are the responsibilities of the BIM lead. And that's what we talk about in week 7, I think. Why you need this role, why this role is so important, what this role does, and the value it brings to a project. Those are my myths. Lastly, so why the struggle? Why the struggle if we know all of this stuff? So very quickly, after I built all those slides internally, they said, Brent, just tell us the value. Less information. Just tell us what we're doing. So here's the value. We do BIM for faster production, quicker drawings, parametric changes, schedules. And I look at people. Anybody disputing this? And nobody can dispute that. I use my door as the example. You're going to make me draw the door 5 times instead of 1 time? We're just being flat out inefficient. Less rework. Tell me to make the door a little wider. Oh my goodness, it updates everywhere. Done. You tell me the door is now fire rated. Done. Spec updated, schedule updated, all by just right click, modify, boom, done. Everybody's working together. Less rework. Improved quality, right? Everybody's working together. I was yelled at 15 years ago by a structural engineer. He came to me and said, this 3D model stuff does not work. And I said, why? He goes, because my drafter, called the modeler a drafter, my drafter won't let me change this dimension. I want the beam to be 15 inches instead of 12 inches. And I said, of course he won't let you make the beam 3 inches bigger. Oh, but then it's running through the duct. So move the duct. Go talk to the mechanical engineer. I don't have time. So, well, look at that. There's a scheduling problem, a design quality problem, and you want someone to fudge it so that you get into site and all of a sudden the ductwork doesn't work around the steel beam. Go fix it. And we argued and argued and argued, and guess what? The mechanical engineer made his adjustment and all was good eventually. But it was that concept of, on the board, I'm just going to make a quick change and not care about the ramification. BIM shows you the ramifications, thus leading to a reduction of errors and increased accuracy. If you model it, it's right. If you model as you expect to construct, it's right. It's true. Less errors, computational errors are removed. We can actually now analyze things properly. It's quite a phenomenal world we live in. And I show it to you. I'll give you renderings and animations. I'll print screens, show it in 3D, use a tool like Enscape with Revit and just throw it into a VR goggle and say, look and walk around. You understand it. More importantly, the clients and the stakeholders understand it, thus leading to less waste and less risk. Client gives a buy-in and nods their head. We're not working for fear that the client might change their mind. They'll sign off on what they understand. Improved ability to collaborate. Everyone can work from anywhere across the globe. All 30 of us could work live on a singular Revit model today, on a singular project at any time, because of the power of the cloud. Don't underestimate the power of the cloud. That improves speed of delivery. There's no, oh, every Friday at 12 p.m., we're going to collect all the models, transmit them to everybody, and then a Friday afternoon, you guys will all receive them, link everything up, and then Monday morning, spend the day figuring out what's chill. Those days are all gone. Thank goodness those days are all gone. You make a change, I see it now, done. And then we automate, and we better, leading to lower cost. Period. BIM doesn't cost money when you do it right. When you think of everything we're going to learn over the next 14 weeks, you do it right, it'll be awesome. That's all. It'll just be awesome. And it'll open the door for more things. I'll show you examples of what we call Inform. It's our asset management system. BIM connected to the asset management system, smart city platforms, GIS integration, you name it. I'll talk a little bit about bots. We develop digital robots that we send off to do things for us inside our infrastructure. A lot of possibilities out there, but not if I'm fretting over how many times I have to draw my door, right? We've got to get beyond all that stuff. Or how thick is my wall looking in plan? Whatever. Set it. Standardize. We can optimize. Keeps us all in the game. If we're not using this technology, first of all, I probably wouldn't be teaching you. And then when I put a rec out saying I need someone to come work at IBI, why would you want to come and work for us? If I say, yep, come and work for IBI, we use 2D AutoCAD and we love it, you wouldn't come, right? You want to come to use the things that we're doing to make a difference across the globe. So what's the problem? We're on the red side now. Too expensive. Everything's too expensive. And this is the myth buster portion of what you'll have to deal with when you get in the industry and say, hey, I just finished this course at Algonquin. All this phenomenal stuff we can do. And you get a director, no, we're not doing that. No. Why not? Oh, we don't know software. Right. So what if we trained? What if we fixed it that, right? So comfort with software is one thing. We have people, Revit is hard. Civil 3D, oh my God, I want to place a pipe and I don't know what to fill out. Well, let's teach you what to fill out. A lot of these tools, I describe it as you can't be dumb inside the tool anymore. So I can't draw a line. I got to draw something. I can't draw a pipe. If I hit place pipe, it's going to ask me, well, what do you want to place? So you got to know. You might want to pick a spec. What if I don't know the spec? Well, learn. We help. We make it happen. We do more than we need to do. Well, don't, right? We're doing BIM. Oh my God, I got to do clash detection every day. No, you don't. Maybe clash detection after a milestone deliverable, maybe a little bit before, maybe schedule it depending on what's happening. Figure it out. Just because you're BIMing, that doesn't mean you do work without getting paid. Contractor asked me to model the temporary works. What? You're modeling shoring and formwork? Yeah, the contractor asked. Well, don't. Ask to be paid. Reinventing the wheels. I have somebody stuck in Revit trying to build this component. Did you ask an expert? Nope. Okay. So you see these issues. Nothing to do with BIM. Nothing to do with anything. I've been told, oh, Revit takes so long to start. I said, really? Who's trying to start it? Oh, the lead architect. Well, why don't they ask a BIM coordinator to press the buttons that my team built that starts up a model in seconds? I didn't know, of course. All right? I'm airing all my dirty laundry here. So not using the experts. You guys are the trained people. When you get into a firm, you'll see some people will just go off in a vacuum and do things. And then you hear tidbits of, yeah, all this software just doesn't work. And you find out that's because people are doing things wrong. Trying to emulate 2D CAD. I went into Revit's 2D view and I can't draw lines. I don't know how to draw lines. I just want to draw a wall and offset it and then fillet the corner. It's like, come on, man. Help them move beyond. We're not doing AutoCAD. We're doing intelligent modeling using BIM authoring tools. It's a very different world, much better world. And then bad project delivery. Oh, it's a bit, BIM costs money. Why? Because we had a lot of change. We had scope creep, staff turnover, all things that have nothing to do with technology, but BIM gets embroiled in it all. So that is everything I wanted to babble through today. So most classes will be something like this, where I'll, we'll start through an overview of looking back, go through the dialogue, and if anything opens up in the weeks as it comes, we'll address those. So quickly, any questions or comments about any of the content I just went through? And I know it might be a little overwhelming the first day, but I try, again, it's like little tidbits of all of the stuff that will appear in much more depth in the coming weeks, as you can see the outline here. Okay. I'm going to just click week 2 here for a moment. So starting next week. So week 2 will open half hour. Awesome. So you'll see a couple of online learning objectives. I have a generic EIR. So again, if you're completely new to all of this, rock on. Have a look at that. Employers' information requirements is what we're going to be talking about next week. Client requirements. So project definition and deliverable. You can't define and deliver anything if you don't know what the client wants. And on a lot of projects, client doesn't want nothing. The client wants a delivered design, great. But on a lot of projects these days, a client wants more than just a delivered design. So we're going to go through a bunch of this stuff, and we'll go forth from there. At the end of next week, the first quiz will open, and you'll have a bit of time to do that online. And with that, if there's no questions or comments, I thank you all. I hope you enjoy my style of teaching and how this goes. And yeah, I look forward to the next 14 weeks together. And I'm hoping that I'll be able to come over during the BIM Blitz. So I'm going to coordinate that with Susan and the other professors. But I'd love to meet you guys all in person. So with that, for the good of the order, no questions. I'm just trying to see chat. Okay, yeah, so I'll keep an eye out. I didn't realize that there was a chat window on here. Okay, so there's nothing in there. Okay, everybody, thank you so much. And please put something in the discussion. I don't want it to all pile up on you. Just do it. Throw something in there, rock on, and have yourselves a great weekend. Bye, everybody.